Hey everyone, Travis Rudros here, and we are looking at a midpoint check-in for Opus 17 Rebellion's Call. It is October 3rd as of the time of this recording. I believe the next set comes out near the end of November, so we're kind of at the halfway point, somewhere around there. But either way, I always enjoy doing these because there are a lot of cards that when I first review them, they sound really awesome, and it turns out, oof, they kind of suck. Or other ones that I think, well, these are going to be absolutely terrible. And then when I get to play with them, I'm like, wow, that's way better than I thought. So thought I'd give a little mid-Opus meta update. As far as the meta goes, too, let's see. We've had the re-raise in Phoenix, Pennsylvania. Unfortunately, that's the only really big tournament we have. There is the RVA Tri-Talk Cup coming up in, I think, a week or two in October, and then there's also a Canadian re-raise after that. So we technically only have one tournament to go off of as far as official tournament results, but who cares about that? I'm just here to tell you about what I think and what I have fun. So of course, let me know what you think and like in the comments below. All right, let's get started. Adelard wasted special ability, but his action ability alone is actually quite nice. He essentially serves Kuchaspel's effect. I thought I would run into more instances where, I want Kuchaspel, but for my summons, it just hasn't really come up yet. And granted, I haven't played a ton of Fire, but I do like his action effect mainly because I didn't really appreciate what it could do until I tried it out in person, and the fact that you can use it twice to turn like a Rain. Like if you only have 3 backups and 6-cost Rain would do 3k damage, you can bump that twice to double it. So then the 3k will become 6k. Then the 6k gets doubled. Now suddenly this Rain's doing 12k on his shot. So like the card, it's fine. Edgar. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of talk about the 6 package in general here, because this has been my favorite deck for this Opus, and it's been the card I've played with the most. And it's, I said it was kind of disappointing originally because I'd gotten to try it out a little bit. And I still enjoy playing it. I do enjoy it because I like these characters and I like this art. And I think there's something fun here. That being said, I'm still disappointed by it. There are just so many pieces to this puzzle to assemble for an effect that is strong, but not absurd. So there are times, despite playing a 6 deck, there aren't 2 6-forwards in the break zone for Edgar to recover. He's vulnerable to Amaterasu and Mist Dragon. That's a double no-no. He only has 7,000 power. I do not understand that at all. He absolutely should have had 9, 8 at minimum, but he should have 9. He is the Fire Legend who is supposed to carry this package. Let him be strong. I don't understand why some legends are allowed to have that. Glaciella, cough, cough, add that in, right? And others are not. And then his ability, I've said it before, it creates a stack, so it's automatically weaker than Glaciella's. Glaciella has a field effect that just the moment she comes down, even if they try to react to her getting the crystal, as long as you have other crystals, you can immediately fire off the Surefire Burst or whatever else you want to do. Edgar has to create an effect. He's really only useful with Sabin. Now, to be fair, I've only used the Fire Ice package. Maybe if you do Wind, maybe Typhon Special is really great there, but you're looking for Sabin, so you've got to get the Edgar out, and you've got to get the Sabin out, and there's so many games where I'll see one and not the other. There's only one searcher in that in that category. I can't get them both out. He is fine. He's totally fine, and if he and Sabin stick around, and you can just sit there and Aura Cannon someone turn after turn after turn, feels awesome. However, there is absolutely no reason this should not be able to be used on your opponent's turn. It makes no sense. So look at all the restrictions on this. He has to play exclusively with Category 6. It has to be a Cat 6 forward of 3 or more. You can't use the Mog. It creates a stack when you use it. And then you can only do it once per turn already. Keep all of those restrictions. That's you can't just jam this anywhere. But you should be able to use this on your opponent's turn. When they try to kill Sabin, I should be able to on the stack, Sabin, boom, blast them with the Aura Cannon. There's absolutely no reason to do that. You have stuff like Twins from Opus 15, 2 Opuses before this, that just have these free action abilities that can blast you to oblivion. Palom, once he gets up there, can hit you for 8k your turn and his turn. There are so many cards that do that. I don't understand why they felt the need to restrict Edgar in this way. Again, especially when they don't. Glaciella doesn't have that restriction. Yeah, she uses crystals. And again, I get it. I get it would be free. but it's already restricted. It has to be 6. It's still once per turn. Like you also have to have the Sabin on board. All those other cards, the twins, Glaciella, they can be on the board completely by themselves. Rydia can be on the board by herself as long as she has her counters. I like it. I really do. It's so disappointing. I just wish we'd get more. Elf, obviously great in the Avalanche package. Never going to go anywhere besides that, but who cares? Never use the action ability, though. Garland's trash. King's trash. Gosetsu is fine. In my head, I saw this Gosetsu Tenzin loop, and at least with the Samurais I've played and seen other people play, it just doesn't really come up, mainly because of time. If you're jamming out turn 1 Tenzin, that's 4 cards you got rid of from your hand. Tenzin will slowly build it back. But Gosetsu just isn't really a priority there. I've actually still seen some people run the backup Gosetsu still to get the new Heian, and maybe that's the right play. There's nothing wrong with this. It's one of those cards that there's nothing wrong with, but in my experience, Samurais will either destroy you already, or it just doesn't become relevant. So yeah, it's kind of like he just doesn't really do anything that they needed him to do. I still like him. I still think the recursion's nice, but yeah, apparently they're just great anyway. So yeah, Samurais. Goblin. Okay, this I don't understand, and I'm going to show a little example. So here's every monster from this set. Goblin is by far the best one, and it's not even close. And it's stuff like this that makes me wonder, what is their design philosophy? Because I thought their design philosophy was every set, you make a set of monsters, and they all do a similar effect. The Opus, 14 all have this counter, Opus 13 do... And to be fair, I don't think they should have to stick to that. I like the idea of making kind of wildly different monsters. However, you can't make one good one and a bunch of ones that are crap. So they're all 1 cost. They share that in common, but he's the only one that searches a card on entry. And you've seen if you've seen the little goblin deck, the way it chains off, it's great. And then his action ability for simply dulling and breaking him, you choose it for 3,000 damage. Look at these other ones. They all dull and break. Every single one of them dull and break. Okay, so they share that in unison. This Kalutedian, 2 ice and 2 normal, put him in the break zone to break a dull forward. Really? And then on entry, he dulls a forward. Oh, stop the presses. Yagudo, sets something to 4K on entry. Doesn't even kill it. 2, put him in the break zone. Also set something to 4K. 2 wind on top of that. This guy, 2K brave. Oh, big deal. 2 earth, 2 colorless. To choose a forward and deal it 2k damage for all the backups. Like, why? I cannot believe these are all so expensive. Monsters are already a tight slot as is, and the Goblin just gets it for free. Orc. I've seen him used sometimes because break a damage forward for 1. Not terrible, but the Ewan card does that better. And then you can pay a lightning and another color to dull a forward. Like, I just don't get it. I don't get why all 5 of these are so expensive and the Goblin isn't. But he's great. Good for him. Samurai, if this weren't I'll say this about him and this next backup too. If they weren't Samurais, you wouldn't ever see them played, most likely. Maybe the standard unit, maybe there's some little funky things you can do, but they're good because they're Samurais. I honestly think this Samurai, the Hero Samurai's on-entry effect is way overcosted. Having to pay a fire and something else. Okay, if you just look at the cost, that pay 2 to hit something for 8, that's absolutely fine. However, because it's on entry, it's basically tied to his cost as well. So you have to pay 3, then pay another 2. So a total of 5 to do an 8k burn to something. I don't know. Feels underwhelming. I never play this card. And Samurai is like the last card I ever want to play. But again, we also have other Samurais that already do that better. So maybe if they didn't exist, he'd see some play. The Samurai's fine for Samurai. Never even seen Scott. Xenos has been fine. I've seen him in a Verstale list, which is pretty sweet. He can play, the Renoa for free to flicker. And his on-attack swing is threatening in not only that list, but the Heian list, like the 14 aggro, hey, all the 14 characters just kill you immediately list. Pumping everyone by 2, nothing to sneeze at. So yeah, he's solid. Tifa I've never seen. She just seems, she's there. Berserker's garbage. Bahamut is great. I kind of underestimated this card when I first saw it, and I think it was mainly because my first impression was you had to do 10k only to a single, or you could only do it to a single, or you had to divide it up. That's what I'm trying to say. I thought you always had to pick 2 forwards, but no, you can blast something for 10. I love it. And the fact that it goes to 15 on damage 5 has been relevant on occasion. So Bahamut, good job. Other Bahamut, not so good job. So I tried making a deck with these. I'm going to show them to you really quick. Here's the thing with these. If combat was relevant, maybe these could be okay, because the most they do is that when the 2 ice ones die, you can search out one of the others, which is just like, is okay, not great. And then really the big thing is on damage 3, this Jet Bahamut, when he enters the field, you choose one of the other two, you play it right to the field. And then when he enters, he deals 5,000 damage to one forward. That's it. Just 5,000. Now, the biggest play you can get out of is on damage 3. You play him, then you play Garnet Bahamut. It's going to increase the 5,000 to 3,000. So for all that, you get an 8k nuke on something, which then removes it from the game. Again, not awful, but then that's it. They're just bodies that sit there. And again, if combat's relevant, Garnet says they all do 3,000 extra damage, which is really nice. So, they can trade up to 10Ks, 11Ks. And then Amber Bahamut says they take 2,000 less damage. So, again, if you're playing in some world where combat is relevant, maybe a limited format or some crazy time in the future or past, then, okay, that could be cool. But that requires you to assemble all 3 of them. And that's just not where the game's at anymore. Maybe in the future, if they make more card name Bahamuts, but I don't know. And again, this is another example. Why does this have to wait till damage 3? This is the only thing this guy does. I don't, it's already completely limited. It has to be these 2 cards. Whatever. Hien is obviously amazing. It just goes well in Samurais. And again, people use it in the 14 aggro deck. He's even good in just mono fire. Again, so there's an example where Hien, they didn't put any restrictions on him. He controls 5 fire or 14 characters or a combination of the 2. He gets haste, which is what you want. The moment he attacks, he activates himself and every 14 forward, and they can all attack an additional time. Absolutely insane. Great, just aggressive card to just really put the pressure on. And, no limits, and that's why he's great. Sabin is my favorite character from Final Fantasy VI, and he's fine. Just like I thought he'd be fine, but he's too tied to Edgar. It is absurd that this card doesn't do anything on its own. And no, getting reduced by 1 is not something on its own. I mean, I know it technically is, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that he's cheap. A cheap one cost 8k body is, again, it's fine. Sure, you'd rather pay 1 than pay, 4 or 3, but he still doesn't do anything on his own. And then his abilities, like, first of all, I think I'm going to go by the SNES versions of these. So Aura Bolt, hit something for 8k, fine, nothing wrong with that. Chakra, which I'm assuming is supposed to be, it was what Mantra was in the SNES version. Activate all forwards other than Sabin, they gain 2,000 power. Fine effect, why doesn't it affect him? There's no reason for it to affect him. This is an example where they put theme over design, because in the game, Mantra doesn't affect Sabin. It cures everyone besides him. So get it? It's thematic. Sure, it is thematic. But it's not good card design. He should activate the entire board. The 6 board is small enough as is. So there are times it's so difficult to push over anything because... And again, how cool would this be on your opponent's turn? Just whatever. I'll go in circles about that. But yeah, he's fine. I just really wish he had something on his own. Never seen the Mystic Knight used. The Chaoses I've seen used once or twice, but they're just a gimmick. They're cute. Again, if they didn't come in dull, none of them even do anything on entry that's relevant, like to stop your opponent from killing you. So if this Merilith came in active, I'd absolutely slot 1 of it every deck. Mont Blanc is... It's fine. It's great when it works. And I've said this in any of the deck techs I mentioned it on, like the Serum Moogles one. It's great when it works. And you see the Mont Blanc first. You can play it on curve. Get the Hurdy right to the field. Absolutely awesome. Sucks when you see the Hurdy first, which, if you're like me, happens all the time. So while it's a cool card, I don't think it's consistent enough for me to slot into a deck that I'm really trying to seriously win with. Red 13's fine. I think this is really good design. He's cheap, so you're happy to see him early. Even if you have to play him turn 1, no big deal. You just got a 2-cost backup. And then he has the multiple triggers, which you can hit stuff with. And it's kind of a shame to say this, but man, there's so many strong cards in the game nowadays. It almost feels like the 7k isn't enough. And at the same time, I think 8k would be brutal. So we need a middle ground. 7.5k for Red 13 on each of his entry effects. Umaro, I tried to make work. If you're playing the 6 package, I would highly recommend the 7 cost. It's way better. This card, well, first of all, it should have been 3 or less for the self-discard, because even in a dedicated 6 deck, having to have above 4 characters is absurd. Like, it should have been like Lock. It should have been, if you have 3 total, you're fine. You have 2 or less, so you can't just slam them out there turn 1. But even again, I'll have the Interceptor, Gestelian Empire Sid, Setzer down, and then I'll play the Samaro, and I still have to discard a card. And then despite what, at least in my experience, he doesn't do anything. And maybe I've just been unlucky. Maybe I haven't seen the light. But he's forced to attack every turn. And it's like, okay, but yeah, you can crack him and put him so your opponent discards 2. In which case, if that's, again, that's just never been relevant. That has never been relevant. That's like, oh, I did some master plan to make them discard. And to be honest, discard is worse than it's ever been these days. As someone who's played a lot of it, I can't even count anymore the amount of times people will just top deck great answers because better, cheaper cards exist now, so it's a lot easier to just top deck great answers. So it doesn't matter that you put them to 0 because they very often will just top deck a great card anyway. Like, I just don't like this card, and I don't know why the 6 cards always get so shat on. Whatever. Scholars, just whatever. Super Soldiers never seen play. Edward is fine. It's kind of just did what I thought it would do. I don't think it's nearly as strong as some people made it out to be. And yeah, he does what he does, and he's fine. Curry Wazette, had never gotten to see a special go off, because why would you? There's so many better things you could be doing with that many crystals. Shiva, I had high hopes for. Haven't seen it be relevant a single time. Technically, the only thing it would work on, the second effect that's like really prominent, is Susano, but it's how much is you even see Susano these days? I still use it quite a bit because it's in my deck, but again, with things like Shadow Lords, we're getting more board wipes. And the break 2 cost is just, again, it's just like every other ice summon. It's too restricted. Mention the monster. Zegzat. Oh, Zegzat. So when this card first got spoiled, I very enthusiastically shat on it. I believe my exact words were, this card blows. And what was funny was that someone in the Discord said, do you ever say anything positive? Oh, you're so negative. You're so negative. And they were saying I was completely wrong about this card. People were hyping it up. Well, guess what? I haven't seen Zegzat once because I don't think it's very good. It's like targeted discard, which is kind of nice, except it's not because it doesn't hit backups. And again, it only does it specifically, and it has this weird balance where he's going to cost more to get you to do that. And his on-attack anthem is fine. It's just fine. And again, he feels fine if you cheat him in. He feels fine if you pull him in off a Lena or a Bart's Boko. Not that I've seen anyone even use it for those purposes. But again, that's the other thing. I haven't seen anyone use it. So clearly, it's not that good. And finally, another point about that too, this whole select one card in your hand other than a backup. To me, that reads as an admission that 3-cost Zidane is a mistake. That card shouldn't be able to pull backups out of your hand because it sucks when your opponent plays it early, ruins your curve. But they won't ban that card, but they will print a bunch of new cards that have weaker effects than it. In which case, it's like, okay, so why would I play these over Zidane? Anyway, Setzer, I tried to use this card because someone was trying to sell me about the discard type, but I don't know. Maybe I've just had bad luck with it. It hasn't lined up at all. Don't care for its special. Sarah is just pretty much what I expected her to be. She's awesome if you can actually get her attacking, and she's dull freezing something and making them discard every turn. But the Moogle is just, it's such a slot machine, and there's not great Moogles to run right now, and just, yeah. So it's pretty much what I expected, which is like, it's kind of fun to mess around with, but it's nothing serious. Never seen Terra, Time Mage. Hurdy, my boy, my spoiler, my love. He's great. What's interesting is I always loved this card for the Dull and Freeze. A lot of people got really excited about this card for the flash effect, where you can put him in the break zone, play a fire and an ice, pay a fire and ice to put a fire ice 4 to 5 or less from your hand on the field, do it on your opponent's turn. I think the only problem is that, 1, it's hard to line up. 2, it's kind of expensive. It really is. So you have to pay a fire and an ice and dull the Hurdy and break it. So that's 3 CP and you're losing a backup. Now again, you're instantly bringing in a big forward. The problem is there's just not a lot of great forwards to do that with right now, especially on your opponent's turn. If Edgar could use his ability on my opponent's turn, I would be doing this with Edgar all the time. Physalis would be amazing, but again, you have to have the CP to play it, so you have to have 3 backups up, Hurdy one of them, and the card in hand. And I think too, other than Opus 9 Legend Vein, where you have the surprise, you're taxed to death now, in what situation is it better to literally wait until your opponent's turn to do this effect? If you have the Physalis and you can play it on your turn, it's just hard to fathom a situation where it's better to say, no, I wait till their turn, then pay all this stuff and lose this backup to do it then. Or you can save the Hurdy for by himself and have that lethal dull freeze, which I do all the time. That is absolutely great. And who knows, maybe the Flash will get better as we go on. We will get more Forge, but for now, I just love him for the dull freeze. I mentioned the Bahamuts. Harley, haven't seen once. White Tiger is fun in discard when she can get there. It does kind of put your opponent in this lock of they're only drawing 2 for turn. If they spend anything, she's unbreakable, but again, it's just, man, sometimes it's just hard to get it to line up, and the problem is, it's the type of card I always draw early. Fencer, haven't seen. Mog, haven't seen anyone use. Yatsuyu is still worse at Allstein. I don't understand this. I don't understand these cards that are worse than cards that are much older than them. What were they thinking? And Legendary Turk is just, he's playable literally because he's a member of the Turks. His cost is way too expensive. The discard 2 cards. I don't understand that. And it felt terrible one time. I was trying to break something like a Riddy or something key. So I discard 2 cards to try to put the counter on him. And then they just kill him before he gets the counter. Or they literally let him use the counter in one instance. I try to break him to break the other forward, and they did some effect that like made it untargetable or just something like that. I was like, cool, I just wasted that for nothing. And it's in Turks, which is ice, lightning. I guess you could argue technically it could just be lightning, but either way, it's in an element that doesn't draw cards very well. So why the cost is having to discard a bunch of cards? I don't know. Terrible. But hey, it's a Turk. Happy to have more of those. Dancer is one of the least valuable dancers, but she's fine. Onion Knight's cute. I haven't really used him a whole lot in the Ninja deck, and haven't seen him used much, honestly, of anything. So he's a neat card, but haven't seen anyone bring out his potential. Gargus is interesting. Saw him a lot more near the start of the Opus than I do now. He's a fun little card if he sticks around, that he can keep just slowly weakening people, which is relevant. The bio is nice with Glaciella because it just costs a crystal. You can just pay a bunch of crystals to have him go off and do his thing. So, yeah, he's a fun card. Kind of weird he's kind of dropped out, but maybe someone just wants a more direct answer. I don't know. Haven't seen Ranger. Kelger hasn't come up in the matches I've played him in. I know Steve Dolman of YYT loves this card. And maybe it's really relevant in what he's played over there, but the things I've played, I just rarely run into situations where he's relevant, so it is what it is. Sid's, of course, great, but he's just, generic category searcher. Of course, it's going to be great. Cecil sucks. Seven sucks. Dario, I think, is fine. He's kind of more my card. I've seen a lot of people tend to underrate him, like, he's a big body, but he doesn't. But I don't know. To me, having the pseudo brave with the activated forward each turn, gets around dulling effects, lets you put on pressure and still be defensive, which is really good if you're behind. And then he can't be broken outright, and he takes reduced damage, so he can be difficult to get rid of. And his Aroga Blade is fine too, especially for just breaking backups. Yeah, I like this card. I think he's kind of my kind of card. Chocobo is very good. Mention those. Typhon is fine for what he is. He's nothing compared to old Typhon, but, he's fine. Null is wacky when he gets going. I will say I did underestimate. He is a lot slower than I first thought, because at first I thought the haste didn't matter. I was like, oh, well, I'll just put him with like a Quan, or I'll just jam him out turn 1, make you deal with him. But the problem is when he returns, unlike Kadaj, he doesn't return on your opponent's end phase, so he doesn't innately have haste, so you then still have to sit and wait a turn again. However, once he can do his thing, and it's just silly. It's like, break the best thing on your board, search out the best forward for me, or just even hit you directly. Why not? So, obnoxious. Pinello's fine. Fajito, haven't seen once. Hope, of course, we haven't seen once, because he's garbage. Archer, haven't seen it all. Ricard, I did see in one Rebels package, and he was actually quite fine there. I haven't seen him in Dragoons at all, and why would you? Because he has actually, other than the job, all his benefits come from the 2 characters. And he was quite strong there. I don't know if it's because he's actually strong, or because that magnet effect, which says you have to waste power on a card you don't want to waste power and resources on. Maybe that will always just be a good effect. So even if you had a 9-cost, 2,000 body forward, in the right situation, it's still incredible because they have to target it. But beyond that, having a 9K that just eats up everything that comes in is very nice. He's fine, but again, how many 2 decks are in around? Luso is, of course, absolute nonsense. I don't understand. This is a card that just baffles me design-wise. Why does it only cost 1? Why does it have 2 separate auto abilities? So even if you tried to Amaterasu this guy, you only get to cancel 1. So if they're coming in at cast 7, for the 8k damage, you can Amaterasu that, they still draw a card. Why? Why is that not all just one ability so you can cancel the whole thing? 3 is such a low threshold to hit for a card draw, and it's so easy to play him, get the immediate draw, bounce him back. It's just, again, why? Because it's win. That's why. Ursula, never seen. Glaciella has proven to be worth her weight in gold. I remember Jared wasn't super high on this card, but those refresh counters are quite nice. I've never seen the negate matter, but just it's a 4k buff on demand, and you're showing it. And so you're basically saying, you can't ever beat me in combat. You can always come out ahead on stack chicken with it. You always force your opponent to try to do the thing. Okay, try to kill this thing. And then she goes, well, on top of that, I'll just buff it out of range. And it's summon hate against your opponent's breakdown, which is kind of nice. So yeah, she's proven to be quite a lot better than I originally thought. Haven't seen Cardian or Gabranth. Duke Snakeheart, other than the occasional surprise, is still just pretty worthless as a card. Warrior Titan's been fine. Titan's actually been fine. There are almost times Titan feels unfair if you happen to be playing a high-costed deck that it just basically says kill anything in your deck. And the 5k buff to your entire field is kind of absurd, but, you know, it is what it is. It's fine. Durando's been fine for the few times I see him. I've seen some people with fun decks put him out there, and, you know, as expected, he gets his value tenfold if you can't block him, and he just sits there beating away at your damage zone, and he can get his own special back, which is pretty crazy too. So, you know, but other than that, he's a body that you can just deal with in many other ways. So yeah, he's neat. He's got some neat art. Baron Guardsman's been fine. A few times I've seen him. Never seen Seeping Bree. Precious is good, especially in monks. It is a shame it was slapped with this artwork. Someone actually sent me some packs, and you know who you are, so thank you. I appreciate that. And I pulled a Prish from one of the packs, and I actually thought it was a common. I almost just like chucked it aside without looking. I was like, oh, there's a common. I was like, oh, wait, that's the legend. So a really unfortunate artwork for this card. But for what it does, it's fine. I haven't really seen it outside of monks, but in monks, it's very solid. Matt, as expected, I haven't seen anyone do anything. Matoya seemed good. I've seen people use her as just kind of another potential board wipe in Earth decks. Monk is, of course, a monk, so it's fine. Night Dancer, I was hoping for this card, but have not seen it once, and it's not surprising. Shadow Lord has been basically what I expected. Against tribals, he's awesome. Against non-tribals, he's absurd. It's 7 CP to kill one thing is just ridiculous of a price. That being said, awesome in Rand Pair when you can play him for free. Board wipe for free, that's kind of gross. But again, it's only if they have a tribal, so he's highly dependent on what he's facing. So he's exactly where I thought he would be. Haven't seen Ewan once. Lise, Trider and Avalanche, and similar to the Gosetsu, it never worked out that I had the time to play her. Maybe if I was playing less aggressive Avalanche, if I was playing a more mid-range version, you would have the time to set her out. Everything about her text reads well if you're doing party attacks, and Avalanche is the premier party attack deck, but at least the way I was playing it, never came up. Never seen Lich or Iridia. Lorenzo, I thought about trying to make a deck around because he just sounds kind of neat, whether it's, you know, you give him Brave or you give him Chalinka or whatever, I don't know. Because he's got a neat idea, but yeah, it's just kind of one of those things. Okay, why go through all that effort when you can just do something else that works? Offjang and Mavejang, seen a few little decks crop up. The Dispel I haven't seen be super relevant. Shield Bash has been relevant just because it's a lot of damage. Red Mage I tried, similar to the Samurai. It just paying 5 to break a 4 cost on occasion can be great if it's a really valuable target, but I don't know. I was a bit underwhelmed by that. Afmau's great. You mainly just use it as a backup sculptor. Again, if you're playing the puppet deck, I guess you can go really hard in on those. But it's just nice to play one. And so this is a card, to me, it makes sense that she has 2 separate auto abilities for when she enters. And that is nice, because it would be really punishing to put this out turn 1, try to get your backups, and then they just Amaterasu it. But it's like, nah, well, you can, but I'm still going to get 1. Alice has been great. Her and her brother really exceeded my expectations when they get to their damage triggers. They can really go off. Beyond that, they're just kind of normal cards, but their damage triggers are very potent. Alrisha is awful. Ixian's fine. Hasn't been the meta stopper I'd kind of wondered if it would become with all the 2 costs that are running around. Maybe people are just playing diverse enough decks that doesn't matter. But yeah, it's fine. It's a solid card. I'm not disappointed by it. X-Death. I've got to give this Warlock Wizard, Master of the Void, some credit. He is better than I thought. And when I was comparing him in my head to like Neo X-Death, one thing I think that makes this guy immediately better, not only the break zone removal, which is nice, the fact that he removes it at the end of your turn, the X-Death controller, whereas the Neo X-Death has to wait until the end of your opponent's turn. So they do get a whole turn, a draw phase, active phase, all that, to try to figure out how to deal with him. Whereas this guy, you can slap him down in turn 2, main phase 2, and unless they have an immediate answer, they're going to get punished by it. And unfortunately for me, I've run into a lot of games where I'm playing with decks that just don't have a clean answer. I can't draw the clean answer or whatever, and he just whittles away your board and beats you up. So I think Steve Dolman said it best about this card. When he's good, he's great. When he's not good, he's not so good. But, he's there for those when he's great moments. The 10K is quite powerful, too. There are times he's one of the reasons I've had to put this Bahamut in more, just to attempt to deal with this card, because really need every bit of that 10,000 damage. So yeah, he's better than I first thought. O is cool. I do like him. I love the Glaciella O combo, where he gets you the crystal, he refunds it to you with the New Moon Slash, we pay it with her, and you just slash. And the bubble is quite relevant. We don't really see that effect too often, and having it on an 8K body is nice, that they can't just easily deal with this guy. I think he absolutely needed that. There is a problem, but it's more a Glaciella problem. I think for what O offers and does, he's quite cool. Mentioned Orc. Sidiclan Gully's fine. Should have been out 6 sets ago with Idolus and Ice. I don't know why they waited this long for this card. Whatever. Quan is fine. There's still times I almost wish I had the Red Mage, so I could use it beyond on a 1-card board, but it's fine. The 2K buff is appreciated, I suppose. Man in Black is absolutely great. This card almost seems busted at points, and the fact that it just can recycle a summon over and over and over again, and that, again, whether it's their turn or your turn, just casting a summon says one forward cannot participate in combat, can't attack or block. And again, so they didn't restrict this one. They could have said just, well, it can't block. Okay, well, then it's only useful during your attack phase. Or it can't attack. Okay, now it's only useful during your opponent's. Nope, it says one forward cannot participate in combat this turn. And it's pretty disgusting to just hold something like an Amaterasu in reserve. So, great card. Definitely worth building around. Celire's fine. At first I thought she was really, there are times she feels kind of absurd when they pay 1 CP and then they pay 1 extra to break a 2-cost forward you have, especially if it's a crucial forward, like an Edge or one of your twins, someone you really want to keep around, like Iridia. She almost feels unfair for that. Paying 4 for the 9K to an active, it sucks to lose it, but that's at least kind of a bit more of a fair cost. So she's kind of similar to Xdeath when she's good. She's really good. When she's not, well, at least she's cheap. Cissnei is the better of the 2 Turks. She's still not great. And, she's a member of the Turks, so of course you're going to slap her in there. And I do appreciate the damage 3 2K haste Brave, although, again, if you're doing what you want to do in Turks, you probably already have the haste and the Brave, or the Brave, First Strike, whatever, from Reno and Rude. And if you're not getting to... The thing is, if you're not getting to do what you want to do with Turk, she doesn't change anything. And again, why is her on-entry effect tied to a discard, just like the Ice one? Where is this secret card advantage that Turks is supposed to amass that I can fund these abilities? So you have to discard a card, you hit it for 1K for each CP required to cast it. Well, unless you're running like Fell Thanos, it's probably not going to be much. So the incentive is to discard another Turk, which bumps it up by 5K. So you have to dump Reno or Rude 3 costs to hit something for 8K. If you want to hit something for 9, you have to throw away Seng. And Seng is the one Turk you never want to throw away because he's going to die, so you need to play him over and over again. I just don't understand why this is again, if you're going to make this a cost, give me an engine or something that allows me to do this. If you want discarding to be part of the Turk's power set for whatever reason, give me something to fund that discard. It doesn't make sense from an aggro perspective, because if you're going aggro, you're not really going to have the cards to just throw away on this stuff. I don't know. Again, it's it's indefensibly better because it's another named Turk, but I really think they missed the mark on both Cissnei and Legendary Turk. Jax, I've never seen it. Haven't seen Knight or Knight Hooded Man. I hate this card. I think it's even worse than I originally thought it was. And I know some people really like it. And if you like it, awesome. I'm glad you do. I'm glad it works for you. It's just not my type of card. I hate that the first copy of this card I draw is dead. It doesn't do it's a 8K body with haste. That's not good enough. That is not good enough. So, and there'll be games where I'll draw one copy really early and it just doesn't do anything. Yeah, I can pitch it early, but it's a really weird feeling. I don't want to draw a card that says, hey, you cannot do anything with this card. I've seen some people play a lot of Canes to help supplement it. When he goes off, hey, I'll give you that. When he does his thing, it is good. Playing this and then getting all your backups back and drawing a card, undeniably great. I just don't like the hoops you have to jump through to get it. And it just doesn't work for me. So for me, he sucks, but I know other people like him. Awesome. Yugiri is, man, I just kind of disappointed with ninjas, and I think the truth is, too, they just didn't get much love this set. Like, they got the Yugiri, but what else did they really get that really changed what they do? Not much. Mainly this Yugiri. And she's fine. It is a cool feeling, too. You put the edge out. You put Mina out. Mina can search Yugiri. She gives you another way to get edge early. But again, they want you to discard 2 ninja cards to break a forward of 4 or less specifically. Why can't it be higher than that? You've already restricted it. It's got a cost of essentially 4 CP because you have to discard cards, and they have to specifically be ninjas to break. Why can't she break any forward with that? I don't understand why that's restricted to 4 or less. Again, there's a cost there. 4 CP, that's kind of their baseline cost anyway. If you look at summons like Cactar, they seem to think 4 CP to break something is a fair cost. Okay, so you're having to pay 4, and it has to specifically be a ninja thing. So again, you can't jam this anywhere. I don't understand why it's restricted to 4 or less. She's fine, but just ninjas, they're still just so reliant on that edge, and it's so easy to get rid of that edge. So, ninja problems. Haven't seen Leary ones, and Dragoon is great. So Dragoon backup. Awesome. More Dragoons. Although, speaking of Dragoons, I will touch on this now. Having played that deck recently, I actually think it feels weaker now than it ever has, despite these backups. Not than it ever has. That's incorrect to say, because obviously it was way weaker before Alice and the backups and everything. It just doesn't feel like it... I mean, it does Dragoon things, but I don't think that has changed. The Cherry Blossom is, of course, still there if it happens. The Alice draw every turn, if you can get it, is still great if it happens, but it still forces you to build your deck in a way that you can't really have a ton of interaction especially on your opponent's turn. It can still be quite expensive to do the only interaction you can do. Every time I've tested Dragoons this Opus, they've gotten their asses kicked. I think I've won maybe 1 game. Maybe it's me. Maybe I just suck. But yeah, bit disappointed they haven't done more. Nonetheless, this backup is obviously a great addition. Haven't seen Blue Mage once. Alphino, like his sister, is amazing, especially on damage 5. Again, his trigger beyond that, I don't think you play these minus the damage effects. I'm not saying you shouldn't. Like, playing them early just to kind of scry through your deck is fine, but I think you put them in a deck planning to get those damage triggers, because those damage triggers are incredible. Haven't seen Andoria. I tried the Kukulane. Didn't feel good. Haven't seen anyone else use it. Chemist, nope. Kraken, nope. Glaciella Wazette, our star. This card is undeniably good, but I do have some comments about her and kind of the world she exists in. So everything about this card reads great. As a matter of fact, it reads better than I even originally thought. Surefire Burst is just a nuts special ability, and I think it's actually nuts to the game's detriment, not to her detriment. The thing is, Surefire Burst is a great special, and you simply pay a crystal and you pay 2 water, which means if you have a water card in hand, you just let it go to the break zone, discard it, or you can tap 2 backups. And she hits any forward for 2k damage for every character. It is so easy to get this to 8,000, 10,000, 12,000. I've seen 20,000. If you play her with 5 backups and she's still on the field, I mean, you're hitting something for 12,000 damage. There's nothing that's surviving that. I've seen her played off of 3 backups with a single monster out. She's still nuking for 10k. It's absurd. And competitively, that's great because it means she's a 1-woman army, which is freaking awesome. However, I think it did hurt crystals as a whole and the other FF Brave Exvius characters like Physalis, like Gargus, because there's just not really an incentive to go after those other specials when Glaciella can do it all completely on her own. I've tried the Glaciella Physalis combo. It's so hard to get it to line up. And again, you're like, why am I going through all this effort to get these two on the field together when Glaciella can just do it completely by herself? Same with the New Moon Slash combo is great. Guess what? That one also still has a limit on it. Glaciella can just blast anything. So yes, there are a few fringe cases where, she needs someone else to break through a certain type of forward, but for the most part, it's so good, and it's probably too good. Here's food for thought, though. I don't think there's any plans for crystals in the future, at least not in the immediate future. Maybe they'll come back in the future. Like, this might be this card's peak. Someone was mentioning that in the Discord, and I hadn't really considered that. But yeah, this card could just disappear next set, as a lot of them tend to do, especially because if there's no more crystal support, I mean, I don't know. It's a good thing she gains a crystal herself, too, and she's a cool idea. I'm just a little disappointed she didn't expand the design as I was kind of hoping it to do. It's now just the best payoff you can use your crystals for, but crystals in general still just feel meh. Very half-hearted measure on those. They really just feel like, and again, you can count them. There's 50 in Opus 15, I think 11 in Opus 16, and like 6 cards that mention crystals in this set. So they just, I don't know, really, really a letdown mechanic. Never seen Corellia. Marquise, I tried to do a deck with him and Elise. It just never worked out. It never lined up. So on one hand, I don't really feel like I can say much about it because I didn't even get to try it. I was hoping to do some kind of Gentiana, Marquise the Phantasm combo to shut off all entry effects. But again, you have a card called Sid Randall that does that. And I don't know. I just haven't found a place to use these. Gordon's fine. He's solid little backup. Haven't used him. Mentioned her, White Mage. Princess Sarah, haven't seen anyone use it once. Haven't even seen people try to use Cactar stuff. Formelda reads kind of interesting, but she's blank before damage 3, which doesn't feel good. So, and in a game where consistency is more and more desirable as time goes on, at least in my opinion, I just don't think there's ever going to be a place for cards like this, unless you're just wanting to have fun. And I'm going to have fun and play Formelda, why not? But if you're trying to seriously win a game or win a series or a tournament, whatever, you just can't take that kind of chance on these cards. Never seen Miranda. Minwoo is just exactly what I thought he would be. In the right matchup, he sucks. He doesn't do anything. He's really easy to kill. In the wrong matchup, he'll just break your deck apart because you can't do anything because everything you have in your deck is choose something, and he just negates that completely once a turn. So, yeah, just, again, what I thought. Amazing when he's amazing and sucks when he sucks. I do wonder if, for his cost reduction, if you could have just, for each summon of a different color you reduce his cost. It's kind of weird it had to be 3. He might see more universal play at that point, but maybe that's also what they were afraid of. I don't know. Mog, cute idea. Haven't seen it used once. Ramada, I really liked when it started. She definitely does feel more and more like a weaker version of all this crystal stuff. And again, part of that's probably just because Glaciella is so good on her own. That being said, I have seen people play around her that they'll play a little differently because they're always worried about the Ramada haste coming in to get you. And the Reaver, haven't seen once. Engelbert's fine. If you're playing crystals, I do think he's worth it. I actually really do like his action ability that you can just negate damage by abilities. It was really great in the mirror matchup where I had an Engelbert down. My opponent wasn't running it, but we both had Glaciella decks. And he had his Glaciella, and it's like, go ahead, you can try and Surefire Burst me. I'll just respond with Engelbert and completely protect it. So I like him. If you're playing crystals, definitely give it a shot. Maria is a cute idea, but seeing it in testing, I just don't think it's worth it. As I was discussing with my friend Matt, you're just opening your backups to get blasted. And yes, it's cool to have a 2-cost backup with 10k power and a big beater. And when I killed that backup, it's like, so not only have in one stroke, I hit it with Sabin's Aura Bolt after the Maria was gone. And so not only did I just kill a forward, I killed a forward and a backup for the same price that I would normally just kill a forward. So fun little idea. I don't think there's anything there, though, to abuse that quite yet. Venera Finesse. I remember my friend Alex was really freaking out about this card when it first got revealed. He's like, oh my god, it's just going to destroy my Rydia deck. It's just going to da-da-da. Well, Alex, guess who's still playing Rydia constantly? That's right, you. And you have no problem with this card, as I knew you wouldn't. You can Amaterasu the trigger. She's a small body. You can just blow her to pieces. I honestly don't even think this is a great use of a crystal. I think what makes this card work is the fact that she can be completely free. Having a free haster is nice. However, if you use her crystal swing simply to get through a point of damage, I don't think that is worth the crystal cost. And I've seen a lot of folks do that where, on defense, they have 2 8K bodies, they drop the Venera Finis, they swing, they hit the crystal, because it cuts them to 3, which is, of course, the right move there, because otherwise she's just going to suicide herself. But now you've just blown a crystal to deal a point of damage, and you didn't even get rid of the bodies. So I think she's a little overrated, personally. I've seen some people say this card's just absolutely broken. I find her to be kind of overrated. Emperor is cute for what he does. It is kind of satisfying to put him out there like really early, turn 2 off of 1 backup, search the other 2 copies out. Of course, if you ever pull any of those copies, he just gets worse and worse, and he's so weak to something like Bounce, because if you've already searched out and removed the other Emperor cards, not only do he lose his Palamecia counters, he won't do anything on entry. So, like, fun idea, but again, no consistency. And then the starter cards. I haven't seen anyone really use this Kane. Zemus is actually pretty ridiculous in a Verstale deck specifically. You're fine to burn off 15 cards from your deck because as far as you're concerned, the game's not going past 4 turns anyway. So he has a place there. Haven't seen Scarmaglione once. Haven't seen Baigan. Haven't seen Edge. I have seen Kane in kind of the Rydia summon list, or you could even use it in soirees. He can fetch out this Rydia. He can fetch the Fusoya, which is pretty nice. And this Rydia, as all the Rydias are always good, because Rydia is just not allowed to have bad cards. Would love to know why certain characters get that treatment and others don't. But yeah, she's solid for what she does. Haven't seen the Rosa. Saw a cool deck around the Cecil, but just didn't really, again, it's what it is. And haven't seen the Golbez either. And then, of course, our Legacy. So that will do it for Opus 17. Those are my thoughts on the cards midway through. There is very little that I changed my mind about from the set review. X-Death probably being one of the bigger ones. And a lot of that was because, to be honest, I think there's a lot of just junk cards in here. There's a lot of cards. Again, I haven't even seen anyone attempt to use them because they just seem so bad. So anyway, let me know what you think. What decks are your favorite? What have you enjoyed the most? What did I miss the mark on? What is something you think is absolutely amazing? And all that. If you like what you see, feel free to give me a like and subscribe. If you don't like what you see, I appreciate you watching nonetheless. And if you're interested, you can support me at my Patreon down below. Until next time, take care.